evening, Zambia, and good evening, the rest of the world, and welcome to Camnet, and indeed, welcome to Frank on Camnet. On this program, I'll be probing, various people on governance issues. As you know, this year is a very important year for Zambia. It's election year. The presidential and general election will be taking part in this country on August the 12th. So in subsequent weeks, I'll be dealing with issues pertaining to governance. Today, I'm honored to have as my first guest the president of New Heritage Party, a female lady, Miss Chishala Kateka. And I did this deliberately, considering that this is a month for women. I welcome you to the first program of Frank on Camnet, and I'm delighted that you're my first guest.
Thank you so much. I'm equally delighted to be your first guest.
Excellent. You're keeping safe?
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
how have you responded, to the threat of, COVID? How has it changed your life?
Quite a bit, I think, and because of what we are doing, we found that, we can't have large meetings.
Right.
We need to mask up, and we need to, keep social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that has changed it in that way. Now, in terms of everything else, I had left everything that I used to do. So,
right.
So I can't say it has affected my business, because it hasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
The million kwacha question, or the $1 million question, whichever way you look at it, whichever currency you'd like to use, is you spend quite a lot of your time, your life, in the corporate world. Mm-hmm. And now you decide, I know you decided much earlier, but now you're more active to leave the confines, the comfort of the corporate world and get into politics, which can be very brutal, to women, as it's dominated, by men. Mm-hmm. The question is, why?
Well, Zambia is a very interesting country, as you have noticed. We have moved from a place where Zambia was doing quite well, and now Zambia is not doing well at all. Now, when you look at any society, there are 7 pillars that hold up that society, or that influence the culture in that society. One is the financial or business sector, that definitely influences the culture, the educational sector, the family sector, the religious sector, entertainment and arts, media, and government or politics. Mm-hmm. Now, if the two most prominent of this is religion and politics, okay? But if I had to choose one and say which one is really the one that shifts culture quite a lot, I would have to say it's governance or government or politics, because it affects all of these other ones in a very, very, very short time. Now, what that means is that if you have the wrong people leading this sector of politics, then the results can be catastrophic, because it will impact society, it will impact everything that happens. And the impact will be felt many generations down the line, socially, economically, and in every way. So when you look at Zambia, we've got this, what we call dependency syndrome.
Right.
You know when it started? Back in the one-party participatory days, and we are still feeling the effects now. And it's very difficult to reverse. So the point I'm trying to make is that capable people need to offer themselves to stand. If the capable people do not offer themselves in this politics, others will come in and take their place, and they'll make a mess of things. So Zambians, we complain a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just complain, but we don't do anything about it. So I've decided to do something about it, and I'm inviting other Zambians to come on board. Let us work together for the sake of the nation.
You've got a very good, CV, and you're very educated. I remember, the late president started saying, people are educated, are cowards. I'm not saying all of them. He said most of them. Do you subscribe to that? And is this one reason why you decided I have to answer, that call?
Maybe I can defend the educated. I think that most people are defending their livelihoods. So you know that when you go into politics, it's a bit, you're actually messing with your life. You're actually messing with your career, because if it doesn't work out, you lose out a whole lot of money. So it's a risk that you are taking. So a lot of people don't want to risk their livelihood, so to speak. Cowards, maybe not. I don't know why people make the decisions that they make. Maybe I wouldn't call it cowardice. I would just say people are trying to safeguard their livelihoods.
Having said that, politics right now is attracting a lot of people, albeit, men. Some of them, perhaps most of them, are not, capable. Why are they not getting attracted? Are they getting into politics for service or something different?
That is something so sad. I think you've watched a video that's doing the rounds on WhatsApp as to why a certain politician, or everybody knows who this politician is, withdrew his candidature for something and said, I'm going to stand as an MP,
right,
because there's more money, you can drive a Range Rover, that sort of thing. I think that gives you an indication of why somebody is going into that space. I have been around Zambia. I've really traveled widely in Zambia, and my concern is that I'm not seeing what our members of parliament have been doing. There are some that have done things in their constituencies, but a lot of them, you find they've built buildings, beautiful buildings, and I'm thinking, gosh, am I in Europe or what? They've built themselves all these things. So I ask myself, the very question you're asking me is, are we going in this to serve, or are we going in this to serve ourselves? So my conclusion, I think that there's a lot of service. That's why people are going in there rather than to serve.
Ms. Katiga, do you tend to feel most of us now are in awe with people who are making this quick money as against looking at a person of quality? And please, I don't want to be misunderstood. I appreciate people who work hard and make money. But are we now looking at people who make quick money and we're in awe with them and say, wow, they're doing good?
There could be some people that are looking at them and saying, wow, I wish I was like that.
Right.
But there are people with a solid, with a head on their shoulders, who look at these people and you look at them and you actually feel sorry for them. These are upstarts. They're called upstarts, new money, and they are flashing this new money around because for them, they think they have arrived when they have not arrived. You see, when you make money like that, it's not going to stay.
Yeah.
When your time is up, that money is not going to stay. Take it from me. That's just it. The Bible says that money will grow wings and fly away. My concern is that we could have some young people who might begin to aspire to become like these people. Yeah. These people are foundationless. There's no foundation in themselves. Even the way they are acquiring their wealth, is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So it's not something to be admired. It's something, in fact, to be disdained.
Right.
But they don't see it that way. But the rest of us look at them and we're thinking, wow, you really think you've arrived? Not at all.
Let me revisit my first question, or my second question. I did allude to the fact that you come from the corporate world, and at one time you were chairperson of APSA. Now you join an environment which is hostile, dominated by men. What are you made of? What are you made of? What are your qualities that is frightened many women?
I really can't. Let me put it this way. Most of my life has been spent in a male-dominated world because of my career, because of what I've done in life. I've worked mostly in a space that has been dominated by males. And one of the things that I learned is that men will give you respect as long as you respect yourself, you do your work with integrity, and you do your work well. So now, I'm in the political arena, and I would like to say that I have not had any attacks against myself.
Yeah.
We don't go out there insulting people or talking about people. I mean, we try to talk about the truth or what we think is the truth, and just call a spade a spade. And I think that if you play that way, you should be pretty safe. I mean, don't go out there and stand on a roof and start calling people names. Just be professional. Even in politics, you can be professional.
As a writer to that, important are personal values, to you. I say this, because, values, in this country now are eroded. How important are personal values to you?
They're extremely important. I keep telling people that you need to have character. A person, you see, you can have charisma, or good arrival qualities. However, what will keep you wherever you are going is your character. And what determines, your character, the characters that you have, the character that is associated with you, and the values that you hold. So it's not like one day I will come doing things that are different, but I must have these values. I hold these values dear to my heart. And whether you are there or not, whether I'm on TV or not, I must be the same person. I'm the same person, out there or in front of the camera or wherever.
President Lungu, spoke, at length on the importance of personal values, family, values, and other related, various values in terms of, moral conduct. Is that the message you wanted to hear, or you want to see more than just the message that he was transmitting?
Well, I'll tell you what I heard on the ground with that message that was given. Values are very important,
right? But
you've got to look at timing with regard to the message that you put across to people. I know that in the program of the PF at that time, once in a year, they must talk about national values and how far we've gone with regard to the national values. But right at that time, people were not really listening to that, because they were more concerned about what was topical about at that time. Something had happened which was of concern to the nation, which was totally ignored, and then the values were talked about rather than that other thing. And also the fact that I think that what people might not understand is that people are hungry, and that is a serious issue, and they want you, rather than talking, they would rather you come and talk about how can you help me get out of this situation, and that's what I heard that people wanted to hear, rather than the values themselves.
I want to ask you this, because I know that you are very strong, in a Christian, and I did allude to the fact that, values in this country now are eroded, and this in a Christian, in a country. Does this question the whole point of declaring this country as a Christian nation?
Values may be eroded, but in contrary to that, I don't think that that then brings into question that we are a Christian nation. The reason that the values are eroded because of the environment, okay? The fact that in your home your children are going wild doesn't mean you should stop being a Christian. What you should do is take charge, all right? So if we take charge, as a nation, things can change. We need to take charge. We really need to take charge. Set the tone from the top.
Who should take, charge?
The leaders. The leaders should take charge. You see, every time something is going on in the nation, it's the leaders that lead the way. They point to the right direction. This is what we should be doing. This is where we should be going. It can only be the leaders to lead. Most of the other people can only influence the nation in their locality or in small pockets. But the leaders, the national leaders, everybody's looking to what the national leaders are doing.
Have the national leaders, failed us, failed the country?
I've joined the political arena. I think that gives an answer.
Perhaps you want now to improve the situation.
Yes.
That's why you are on board.
That's why I have joined politics, because it's look, all leaders do some good. You can't succeed at everything, but then you don't lose everything. So all leadership fail at some things and they succeed at some things. So even our national leaders have succeeded at some things and they have failed at some things. So generally, when you are looking at leadership, you need to gauge on a scale of 1 to 100 or 1 to 10 or whatever scale you want to use, and you say, where do these fit? Now, I know you're going to ask me where, these ones fit.
Yeah.
But they have not been all negative. You know what I mean? They've done some good. They've done some good.
Right. Let's look at the Heritage Party.
Yeah.
You were part of the Heritage Party, which was started by Brigadier General Mianda.
Yeah.
And now you've carried on, albeit rebranding, in Heritage Party into what you're calling now New Heritage Party.
That's right.
What is the face of this? What are the ideals of the New Heritage Party?
Okay, so we've got our ideals. The first one is that we use biblical principles as guiding principles. We don't jump up and down and say you must be saved, blah blah blah. No, but we use the principles. There are principles in the Bible which you can apply, whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, which will serve you well. I mean, that gives you boundaries, so we operate according to that. We believe in the dignity of people and that all human life is precious in the eyes of God. Therefore, we must do all we can to preserve it. All right? That's one. The second one is we are one nation in diversity and unity. We are diverse in terms of tribe, we are diverse in terms of even political affiliations, in terms of religion, but we are still one people. We believe that diversity and inclusion, regardless of tribe, ethnicity, gender, age, contributes to our strengths and impacts our shared economic, social, and cultural success. So we are a unifying party. The New Heritage Party is a unifying party that seeks to bring all Zambians together to achieve our common aspirations. We've got common aspirations regardless of our diversity. We believe that Zambians must prosper. Zambia's wealth is the heritage of Zambian people. That is our core message. Therefore, Zambians must be empowered to prosper and benefit from the wealth and natural resources. You see, when we talk about the wealth being our heritage, that's where we get our name, Heritage Party, because that's our key message. Leadership and good governance. We believe in a responsible governance that is fiscally prudent, accountable, and attentive to the needs of its people. We believe freedom and responsibility. We believe in the freedom of individuals and communities to exercise free speech, worship, and assembly, and that this freedom must come with a collective responsibility to others. Yes. And then loyalty to the Constitution. We believe in loyalty to a Republic of Zambia that is governed in accordance with the Zambian Constitution and the rule of law.
Tell me, Ms. Kateka, politics is about numbers,
That's
right? In politics, in political parties, there are all sorts of characters. What strategy, if any, are you applying to ensure that you have the numbers, at the same time you have people who embrace your ideals, who are of higher moral fiber?
So you've got leadership, party leadership, and then you've got members. So I think that when we go and we speak to people, I mean, this is not campaign time. So at this time, it's a time for mobilization, as they call it. You are mobilizing and putting people in positions, and we speak to them. We talk to them about our message. We talk to them about what we stand for, and so you'll find that. Those who come for positions of leadership are people who buy into your message. How are we growing our numbers? We're growing through networks. I meet you. You've got a network behind you. So we're going through our networks because at this time, especially with COVID, it's not business as usual. So you've got to find ways and means of growing your numbers, and we use other ways of growing the numbers. Some people hear about you and they come and they join you and say, this is what we've been waiting for. Yeah.
Are they listening? Are more numbers listening? I said this, and we'll be talking about the economy very shortly. It's very, very difficult to listen when you're hungry. There are a lot of hungry people in this country right now.
True.
Hence, some of them are attracted to political parties that are giving them, cash.
Yeah.
This is a challenge.
Yes.
And it must be a challenge, to you. How are you going around this? How do you hope they're still going to embrace your vision that it's going to get better if you come with us, if you travel with us?
Yeah. So Zambians are not dull people. Okay, Zambians are quite intelligent, and when you come to throw that money at them, they know you're throwing that money at them. They'll take that money. It happened in 2011. It's happening now, where you have people throwing money at the electorate. So when we go, we look, there's no way we can compete in terms of money with those who are throwing that money. And we tell them, guys, we have not stolen. So, we don't go there, steal your money and bring the money to you. And then you say, yeah, no, we don't do that. What we do is we talk to them and we open their eyes. I always say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We tell them our message, which is really key. And we think it resonates with the Zambians at this time. And we pray that they are listening, because we tell them, guys, look, even if I gave you a 10,000 kwacha, just one person, is that going to last you 5 years? How long are you going to be lied to? How long are you going to be, we call it shingered butter. People shinga you butter, they come after 5 years, they shinga you some more butter until this butter is this thick. How long are you going to be lied to? Even if I gave you 20 bags of mealie meal, how is that going to last you 5 years? So we are finding quite a lot of people that are listening. Yeah.
Tell me, the PF, is driven by capitalism. That really is their ideology. Although they say it's a party for the poor people. But when you look at what is happening right now, it's not synonymous. What is your driving, economic ideology, economic, in a policy?
Okay.
There's a socialist party right now,
yes,
which is very clear of what what it wants to do.
Yeah.
What is the driving force of the new Heritage Party? So,
that Africa is the cradle of humanity, and a lot of things were started in Africa. Even universities started in Africa because we used to think, and then also we had a society or a culture that used to work. So in the African culture, you would not find orphans, street kids. You wouldn't find old people that are destitute. You would not find anybody who was without a job. Why? Because in Africa, we always used to, everything we did, and I'm talking this pre-colonial, way before, everything we did was well thought through. Everything made sense. You did everything. You could explain everything as to why you were doing it, because it had been thought through, tried, tested, and it was part of our culture. When we collided with the West and with the East, we began to import ideologies. You import capitalism, you import socialism. At the New Heritage, I've gone about in a long way to answer this, but at the New Heritage, we are saying, the time has come when we stop importing ideas from the East and ideas from the West and superimposing them on us. And we're saying the time has come for us to find out who we are, find out what works for us, and do that thing. So I don't know whether it's a mix or whatever, but we don't want to be called capitalists or socialists, but we want to have policies, guidelines, and everything that works for the Zambian people.
I'd like to elaborate. I'd like you to elaborate on that. The economy of this country, the economies of Africa, and some European countries are being driven by Chinese, money. Are you telling me you're going to depart, from this? How are you going to relate to China? This is one giant, you cannot drop like a hot egg, like a hot potato.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, we are not saying that we are going to drop China or doing business with China. That's not practical. It's not practical at all. But you don't have to become like the Chinese to trade with the Chinese. We don't have to become like the West in order to trade with the West. We can become ourselves. We can become who we are and then still trade with them on our terms. You know. So what has been happening in Zambia is that when we get into these trade deals with China, with South Africa, with whosoever, I don't know if you ever saw this advert, Indian Airways or whatever it was, Air India, where this command is bent over backwards and say we bend over backwards, you know, like we go all out. So in Zambia, we seem to always bend over backwards when we are signing these deals. You see, the Chinese are human beings, just as we are. The South Africans are human beings, just as we are. We have resources, they have resources. So why do we call them trading partners if we let them ride roughshod all over us? Do you know what I mean? When we're going into any deals with them, we allow them to dictate the conditions, or we say to them, oh yeah, you know, this if you're going to pay for this road, then quote this one, and we mark up the road. You know, we can go and trade and deal with these partners because they are partners. You can actually negotiate with them as on equal terms. You don't have to bend over backwards every time so that Zambia loses out. You don't have to do that.
You're talking to me as if you're going to start on a clean slate. You're forgetting, I hope you're not forgetting, that we are already in a hole in terms of, and I'll be talking about date later on, we're already in a hole in terms of the date, you know, that we owe China. Yeah. You obviously be in a weaker position, you know, to negotiate on equal terms, Ms. Kateke.
Like I said before, the Chinese are human beings. They are not irrational human beings. They also know that a thriving Zambia will be good for them as well. A thriving Africa will be good for them as well. It's because we allow them to, because of our greed and things like that, we allow them to do what they do. They won't do it if you don't allow them to. In every situation, whether you're dealing with another human being, it's what you allow that they will do to you. Do you say, okay, unless somebody comes to steal from you and kills you, that's different. But if we are trying to get into an arrangement as partners, we sit down and we talk. And believe me, when you talk with the Chinese and they realize that they can actually deal with you as equals and you can negotiate and everything, they know they don't want your country to go down because it doesn't suit them as well. You know, you don't just go in there and look down on yourselves and say, oh, well, you know, we owe you so much. You go there and say, look, we are trying to build up this nation, etc., etc. They are human beings. They will listen.
You've talked about, you've made reference to a thriving, you know, Zambia. Could you elaborate on how you're going to make this country thriving again?
Okay, so we find ourselves in this situation at the moment. The dollar is at 22, thereabouts. Inflation is beginning to really go up.
About 22 or so.
Everything is pointing south. One of the things that I find, and I've been trying to, you know, we've been discussing this with some of my colleagues and saying, I keep saying, guys, the economy is not going to be turned around with a push of a button. It's not a push of a button, okay? There is a process when we go into speaking to the people on the ground, I keep asking them, okay, you guys, if I gave you, the young guys, if I gave you 10,000 kwacha each and I said, break this house down, how long would it take? It would take a few minutes. Okay, it would just take an hour or so. But if I gave you 50,000 each and I give you all the material and say, build this place, how long will it take? It will take time. Okay, so it's very easy to destroy an economy. It doesn't take time. You can destroy it very quickly. Okay, but when you begin to destroy it, there's a spiral effect that, you know, you've seen a whirlpool. It goes like this until it goes very, very fast, and the water drains. Now, when you begin to build up an economy, it's still a spiral effect in that initially it's not going to look like you are doing anything. It takes time, but eventually it begins to pick up, but upwards. Now, so you need to do certain things to kickstart the economy. I know that the easiest thing would be to say, okay, we'll put an injection of cash into the economy. Then somebody will say, but where are you going to get the injection? But here's what I want to say. It will take a number of things to be done, and then carefully following through with what you are doing. The first thing that you need to do is put the right people in the right place. Because it doesn't matter how good your plan is. If you don't have the right people in the right place, you will not follow through. Your execution will not be okay. Then you need to identify certain things that you need to do. Now, in Zambia, we really think we are poor. We are not a poor country. We think we don't have money, but you see, there's been a lot of misapplication of funds, misappropriation of funds, misallocation of funds. Okay, so the money that should be used, some of it we bleed financially. Let me put it that way. The systems are there, but we allow ourselves to bleed through every hole in Zambia. You know, we just bleed financially. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to plug those holes, because if you don't plug those holes, even when you start to build up, you will lose a lot of what resources we could use to build up what we want to build up.
So how do you plug those holes? Obviously, you're talking about corruption.
I'm talking about,
which is a huge, cancer.
It is.
To treat.
It is a huge cancer. There are three things that when we look at corruption that we have thought about, that we need to look at. One of them is preventive measures. Okay? How do you prevent corruption? Firstly, it's your systems, it's your oversight of the systems, and then it's your audit of the systems. Now, okay, I could go deeper and deeper, because when you look at the audit, Auditor General issues a report, nothing is done. Auditor General issues nothing is done. All of that stuff has a bearing on what goes on in corruption. So I talked about the preventive measures, and then I'm talking about the punitive measures that you need to put in place. When corruption is perpetrated, you must be very quick, very decisive to deal with the perpetrators, and those do not be, selective. Don't deal with it selectively. If you're dealing with corruption, deal with the whole thing. Don't say, oh, I know Frank, so it's okay. You know what I'm saying? No. If you do it and you are my first cousin, I should deal with that. But this is not what we see. We see that, okay, certain ministers get away with it, others, they are punished. No, we must. And also, when it comes to corruption, so it's generally, you must deal with all the offenders. So if somebody has come to bribe somebody who's in government, don't just punish the guy who's in government. Punish the guy who's outside as well, coming to offer. look, okay, the third thing that I want to say is that you need to set the tone as leadership, because if as leadership you are also involved in the vice, then obviously everybody down. You've got to send the right message. You've got to send the right tone.
You're a Christian. You won't be clouded by an important word, in Christianity, forgive. You're strong enough, to deal with issues like this decisively?
I believe I am, yes. We have to, look, this is not about being kind to this person. The whole nation is suffering. I live in a compound, okay? I live in a compound, and I have seen how people are suffering. I go into the rural areas and I see how people are suffering. When you take somebody to a hospital, they go and give them a Panadol. They take a piece of paper, they tear it, and they fold it. You know how we used to buy ground nuts? They put the way they fold it. That's the way they fold the medicine papers now. And so a young baby, somebody has stolen money in Lusaka, and these people don't have medicine. How are you going to, allow those guys to get away?
You just allude to the fact that the Zambian people are broken. And you're telling me you've traveled quite a bit. You've seen a lot of, suffering. Some of this suffering is reminiscent of 1990. President Chiluba managed to convince a lot of people who were broken, to buy into him, and he gave them, hope.
Yes.
It's a similar situation. What are you telling people to believe in you? That they can believe in you.
Yeah.
That you're a savior.
Yeah.
That New Heritage Party is the savior they have been waiting for.
Okay, so we explain to them that we share our message, and maybe let me share that message so that you understand that this is what is giving people hope. We explain to them that a nation passes through stages, okay? It's got seasons. And when you have this season, the response to the season is different from when you have this season or this season. So when you look at Zambia in 1964, pre-1964, we were in the colonial times, and what I want you to do is to pay attention to the political parties that I am mentioning. So Zambia in 1964, or pre-1964, we were in colonial times, and we were suffering in our own land. We couldn't do a lot of things as Zambians. You had to walk around with a chitupa, and you bored through the windows, etc., etc. A party arose called United National Independence Party, UNIP. That party was the right party for that time, okay? They were the right party for that time because they said, look, guys, we're bringing independence. And everybody suddenly had hope and said, wow, independence, that's what we need. And everybody agreed. So they took us from one dispensation to another dispensation. And I keep saying, look, their mandate ended because for UNIP to come now and say, guys, independence, we say, we are independent, hello? Okay, so in 1991, we went through another season when we had a one-party participatory democracy, okay? And we were suffering because, again, we were queuing up for everything. We were queuing, cooking oil, we didn't have money, we were just broken as Zambians. You had to cross into Zimbabwe to buy coke and things like that. Again, a party arose called Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD. And they said, guys, we need democracy. And we said, this is it, this is the message. They took us from one party to another. They took us from one dispensation to another dispensation. Now, most parties talk about development, okay? We'll bring development, whether it's infrastructure or whatever development we'll do. And you see, the parties, each party calls themselves according to they give themselves a name according to what they are coming to do. So when they talk about development, they're saying we'll bring development. Then when we look at Lusaka from 1964 until now, it's very different, highly developed, okay? Most places in Zambia have developed. However, there's something that has been missing from the history of Zambians, which is why Zambians are still poor. They are still in most places, they are still in the space where they were in 1964. And you've got to ask yourself, what is the one thing that is missing? What is it that we need now that will help us? Okay, and it's heritage. Heritage speaks of what a person leaves their children and their children's children. Heritage in Zambia speaks of the wealth that God has left the Zambian people. But ask any Zambian, Mwaliliapo wealth, have you partaken of this heritage? God left copper, God left golds, emeralds, mikulati. We've got so much wealth. It's actually a sin for a Zambian to be poor.
What are you going to do different from what the PF is doing? Let's look at the mining sector, for example. Let's look at agriculture. Almost all the political parties agree that the economy will continue to be driven by agriculture and the mining sector.
Okay.
What are you going to do differently so that we get more fortunes in this country as against what is happening today?
Let me just respond to that because I didn't finish explaining the message. The problem that we have is that we do not have policies in place which say, when you sell your... Okay, let me give you a good example so that you understand what I'm saying. This is Chief Nkana's area. Okay, on top here are some of the poorest Zambians in Zambia. At the bottom there underground, you've got some of the greatest wealth in the world, the emeralds. When they sell those emeralds, these ones on top don't get a single ngwe. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a mismatch. You've got wealth as Zambians, you are living on top of the wealth, but you do not partake of the wealth. So Heritage Party, we're saying the time has come for Zambians to partake of their wealth. So if you put policies in place, sell those emeralds, don't just take those emeralds and leave out the Zambians. You must marry the wealth and the Zambians. So whatever you're doing, so whether agriculture is booming, look, MMD did very well. When you look at their economic indicators, they did extremely well, but the Zambians still said, no, we are changing you. Why? Because they left out the heritage aspect of it. Because if they had said, every time we sell something, let us leave something for the Zambians. You can create a wealth fund, you can create a trust for the Zambians, so that these young people you are seeing can have a starter pack, what we call a starter pack. So it's not so much the policies of how you do your mining or your agriculture. That too is important, but the one part that is missing is you need to marry the wealth of this nation. You need to marry it to the Zambians because they are the owners of the wealth. So you can't be taking out all these things. From 1964 we just watch BHL driving out, and nothing goes to the Zambians. It does not go to the Zambians. As long as we don't do that, Zambians will continue in their poverty.
Employment creation.
Okay, so now we can go to the economy. So what are we saying? How do we start to kickstart this economy? So we've got some things that have been put in place at the moment that puzzle us as New Heritage Party. So you have a bumper harvest, then you put in place and you say you can't export your maize. Why? You want to encourage your farmers to grow more. You want them to get a good price. So why can't we export to Congo? Do you know, Congo goes and imports stuff from South Africa, and we are here. We are so well placed. This is something that we should be taking advantage of. Why do you do that? Why do you know, it's the leaders who export stuff. You know, they take stuff out, but you don't allow the Zambians to take things out. Why? Because you see, if you can get a good price, you're going to grow a bigger maize field. You're going to grow a bigger whatever. Okay, so we are saying that we see agriculture as a low-hanging fruit for us. We have, what, 65% of the people are living in the rural areas. And so most people can be involved in agriculture. The barriers to entry into agriculture are minimal in terms of skill, in terms of capital. You know, you can start small and grow. And if you have a listening government, we can do this. So agriculture has the potential, if there's an industry that has the potential to lift the masses out of poverty, it is agriculture. The other thing that we are saying about agriculture is you can do value addition upstream, okay? That too creates employment. And not only does it create employment, it creates a market for the people on the ground, the people actually doing the farming. Then don't limit people to where they can sell. Let them sell to Malawi, let them sell to Congo, Angola. Look, we are so well placed for this. We can become the breadbasket. Encourage this. So we can do that.
Tell me, you know, the importance of small and medium enterprises, you know, cannot be overemphasized. A number of economies, you know, are driven by small and medium, you know, enterprises. The PF government has poured in a lot of money in small and medium enterprises, especially the farming sector. But they haven't graduated, these small and medium. What is New Heritage going to do to ensure that these small and medium enterprises graduate into something, you know, bigger, so that, you know, it adds to the value of the growth of the economy and personal growth?
Okay, so I guess that for any right-thinking Zambian, you will realize that that is the bedrock of our economy. That must be the bedrock of our economy, regardless of whether it's in agriculture or outside of it. The small and medium-sized businesses are so key to this nation. For New Heritage Party, we've identified certain hindrances to the small and medium-sized businesses, including the financial sector. That is so key. We need to get that right in order for these to grow. But what we are saying is that one of the most important issues for us is we know that FDIs, foreign direct investment, is extremely important, is actually necessary. However, what we Zambians need to realize is that an investor comes in to make a return on their investment. They don't come here to develop you or me or the other Zambian or to develop Zambia. They come in to make a return on their investment. That is their number one priority. So knowing that, then we know that they're not coming to develop us. Who is going to develop Zambia? It's the Zambians. So we must develop the Zambians in order for them to develop the nation. Okay? So we are saying, how can we help these, those in the agricultural sector? For example, it's very difficult for them to go to a commercial bank and get a loan.
Yeah, the money is very expensive.
Exactly. The money is expensive, but even if it wasn't expensive, the banks are risk averse. Why? Because the type of industry is so cyclical, and also sometimes it takes time for them to get their money back. Okay, so you can't take agriculture and then put it into a commercial bank, you know, and say commercial bank will lend them money. So we need to set up financial institutions that are geared towards the agricultural sector. We must do it. We must do it. We must set up. I actually think that we don't realize the importance of CEEC, Citizens Economic Empowerment. That is a serious tool. People might it's a serious tool. Unfortunately, you know, we have situations where people borrow, ministers borrow, you know, and might not return the money or whatever. But if you run that thing properly and fund it the way it should be funded, it's a serious tool for the country.
As we've been talking about small and medium enterprises, and let me ask one question which will interest the business community vis-a-vis small, medium farmers in inclusive. We have a lot of cheap imports now from South Africa. We're trading with South Africa. You did mention how you're going to deal with China. How are you going to deal with South Africa, which is threatening the local products?
Okay, so here's my take on but I would even like to put them, together. They are entities who are a trading partner, South Africans were, and I still want to say that as a nation we need to look at the interests of Zambians and Zambian businesses. For example, people in the transport sector, Zambians in the transport sector, when they take goods to South Africa, they are not allowed to come with goods back. There's a word that they have for it. It escapes me at the moment. I'm not in the transport sector. When they take goods to Dar es Salaam, they are not allowed to. But when the Tanzanians bring goods to Zambia, they can take goods back.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the South Africans. Whose interests are we, protecting there? Also, when South Africans come to invest in Zambia, we give them a tax break. But you come to me, I'll not give you a tax break. What are we saying? So
you're going to give Zambian businesses tax breaks?
We must. They're investors. If you're an investor, we must treat investors the same way. If a Zambian is an investor and the South African is an investor, treat them the same way. Give them a tax break, because as a matter of fact, if you gave the Zambian a tax break, this guy, the person that's bringing foreign direct investment is going to externalize that money. This Zambian is not going to externalize that money, I hope. They will invest it in country. So you're even better off giving the Zambian a tax break. So do we think about these things? We must think about these things. Why do we disadvantage the Zambians at every point? By the way, we have a slogan. Our campaign slogan is "Let Zambians win." The time has come for Zambians to win. We constantly lose. We are constantly losing with every deal that is made. It's like when people come to make a deal with us, we allow them too much leeway, and we don't regard our Zambian people.
Is this just our culture? We're not patriotic. We're not aggressive enough in terms of business, or we're selfish as individuals.
Okay, I hear that when as a Zambian, when somebody comes to me, a Zambian comes to me with a good idea, I'll not listen to you. But when someone comes from out of the country with the same idea or even a worse idea, I'll listen to them. I don't know what it is, but the time has come for us to move on. We must change the way we do things. The paradigm must change, and we must start to empower Zambians. We must start to make sure Zambians are lifted up. Also, when you think about it, if Zambians continue in their poverty, who suffers? All of us suffer. All of us suffer, even those who are well off, because now everybody will be coming to you for school fees, medical bills, that sort of thing.
Let me ask you a question which is impacting on the weakness of our culture. Obviously, we were import oriented to the exports that we have through copper. We're not retaining enough foreign exchange, and this is having an impact. This country has no foreign exchange regulations, and as a former chairperson of ABSA, and as somebody who is articulate, who knows how economies operate and business, are you going to restate the way our foreign exchange is flighted?
There are ways of doing that, should the need arise. But the reason the foreign exchange rate is not okay is due to a number of things. And when we start to put in regulations, like in the seated days, you remember those days?
Right.
The seated days and things like that, I'm not too sure that it's the best way to go about it, because the reason the foreign exchange limitations were lifted is because we wanted to attract investment. Okay, I don't know if we are still attracting investment at this time, but what we can do, and we have the potential to, is to increase our ability to export, and it's possible. It's not an impossibility. Remember what I was talking about with regard to the agriculture, and saying, look, if you allow, maybe this is our reset button, because we've been so focused on mining that we don't pay much attention to agriculture. From the time I was in primary school, and that's 500 years ago, we've been talking about diversifying the economy, and we haven't done it. But if we diversify the economy, we've got so much potential. We need to harness our potential and begin to do that. So if we begin to allow our agriculture to be exported, our produce to be exported, and we start to manufacture, we go into manufacturing. I mean, look, if I had to give you a list of all the companies that we have closed down, you would start crying. You'd just sit in the corner there and start weeping. But it's possible to do all that and just re-establish some of those entities, or set up new ones and start exporting, because then that the reason that the foreign exchange rate is not in a good space is because we are importing more than we are exporting.
Two questions before we go on in a break. Starting with $1 million kwacha question, $1 million question. The date, the date now officially is $12.5 billion. Some people are talking of even huge numbers like 27 billion.
Did you say 12?
The official one, 12.5 billion. The latest from Minister of Finance.
Okay.
That there are a lot of numbers which are being floated. The highest number is $27 billion.
It's 33.
33.
Which is by the IMF or World Bank or something like
whichever. That. This brings me to the question, and people are saying, whichever government comes into power, this date would choke any economic programs that you're going to put in place. How are you going to deal with the debt?
Yeah. Look, no matter how high the debt is, there's no way you are going to start taking all your money and putting it towards the debt. That wouldn't make sense at all. Otherwise, the country would just grind to a halt. Like I said, the Chinese are human, so are the lenders. And it's actually possible for you to negotiate that debt. Having said that, it begins with you. You need to have some fiscal discipline. You need to have a plan. You need to have the right people in place for them to listen to you and say they need to see your seriousness. I mean, it's like you borrow money from a bank, you tell them you can't pay back, and the next day you buy a Lamborghini. This is what we're doing now. We've borrowed money, we are defaulting on the debt, and then you are throwing money on the streets. What are you saying? You know, you see infrastructure development even now. So, okay, you owe money and you're still doing this and you're doing that and you're doing that. As a lender, are you going to say, okay, let's renegotiate? Do you see what I mean? We need to show seriousness ourselves. Lenders, or even if you go to a bank and you default, go and engage them. Show them your seriousness and give them a revised proposal. They will listen to you because they ultimately they will want to get their money back, even if it takes a bit of time. It's better than losing out completely. So people are not irrational. Lenders are not irrational. Okay. Now, when you look at us, like I said before, Zambia is not a poor country. We're not totally illiquid, but we are bleeding. We are bleeding. So we need to seal some of those holes. When you seal those holes, you'll find that you've got some money that you can maneuver with. Put in place a plan. Put in place the right people to execute your plan. And believe me, it's possible to get it. It will come. Now, the one thing that I wanted to say is this. Yeah. In 1991, you saw the economy was almost at a standstill. There were no goods at all in the shops. We changed government. What happened? We had a new breed of leaders with fresh ideas, fresh way of thinking, fresh way of approaching the problems. You saw that within a few months after MMD came into power, goods started to flow into the country. Because you see, the people who create a problem will not solve it.
Right.
Otherwise, they would have solved it already.
So in short, you're saying we need a new breed.
We need a new breed of leaders. We need fresh ideas, fresh thinking.
All right. Before we take a break, a quick one. I'm going to leave the economic issues, and we deal with elections issues and later, and also we need telephones after the break.
Sure.
The CEO of IDC has just announced that Zambia Airways will take off in the last quarter of April of this year, I think, last quarter of this year. Your thoughts on that?
Look, it's not rocket science. How on earth, when all these other major airlines are closing down, South African Airways gone, Namibia Airways gone, why should you start a business in these COVID days when there are fewer customers? Why would you do that? Why on earth would you do that?
Irresponsible?
I really, it boggles the mind. This is what I'm talking about when I say it costs money. Even the plane that they are buying apparently is not suitable for. It's not a suitable plane, that they are buying. Why do we do this? Why? Why do we always lose? Why do we make decisions on behalf of Zambians that cost us? It's painful, very painful.
Why is it that many Zambians are not questioning, this?
Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't understand the implications of this. Maybe they don't understand that. I've actually had an opportunity to speak to an aviation expert who gave me the lowdown about this, and I'm very sad about it. And I pray that the government will listen and will not start that airplane. The timing is wrong.
Right. Just one comment, so that I can lay the foundation for the questions that will be coming in after the break. There's a tendency among opposition parties in this country, let me just say in Africa, not to pat the incumbent on the back. Are you one of those who trash everything that the incumbent in this case, PF government has done? Is everything hopeless?
I've said a lot of negative things about the PF, but I think that when they do a good job, we need to give them a pat on the back, because it's the right thing to do, right. And really it doesn't cost us much to say they've well done. This particular decision you've made is okay. And then I keep pointing to the roads. The roads are good. Mm-hmm. Just that we over-borrowed to do the roads, and it has brought us into this situation. But the roads are good. Unfortunately, these roads are in Lusaka. Mm-hmm. When you go out there, you won't find them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are in a city, so we are enjoying the roads. But go out there in the rural areas, even the Copper Belt, it's not there. But anyway, let's give them a pat on the back for the roads in Lusaka.
Have they done well in terms of creating a conducive environment for women to get to the top? You were chairperson of APSA. The many women like you was made it in the corporate world, Mizinga, Charity, many others. They've done well in the corporate world.
Let me explain why. So when I look at the political arena, I look at the corporate world, and I look at NGOs. The women in the corporate world and the women in the NGO world have done very well.
Right.
You find that a lot of them tend to rise to the top. But in politics, it's not like that, because it's rough. It's a very rough field to go in for a number of reasons. So you find that the women do not do as well in politics. I wouldn't say that the environment is conducive to women. It's actually hostile. But then it's hostile to everyone as long as you're in opposition, eh?
Yeah.
It's quite hostile.
I am talking to Ms. Kateka, the president of a New Heritage Party. We will take a break, and when we come back, we'll take some calls from the people. This is Frank on Camnet. Join me and Ms. Kateka after the break.
outpouring of your presence. Let all nations behold the wonder of your grace. Holy Spirit, work among us and blow over our land. Restoration, healing, pour your love on us. Restoration, healing, over our land.
Restoration, healing, pour your love on us. Restoration, healing, over our land. Send revival
Over your church, God.
This is Frank on Camnet, the first program on Camnet. I'll be dealing with governance issues in the next couple of weeks leading to the elections. My guest today is Ms. Shalakateka, who is the president of the New Heritage Party. If you want to ask about issues pertaining to the party, governance issues, anything, now is the time to do that. As we wait for the calls, what are some of your concerns in terms of social issues, governance issues, issues pertaining to women, for example, that really break your heart?
The one issue that really bothers me is seeing how women are on the streets trying to make a living, trying to make money for their families. Everywhere in Zambia where you go, the women are out on the streets from as early as 6 until as late as 22 hours. They are out there on the streets. Now, these women are working so hard, and I'm not too sure what home situations are like.
Let me just stop you there. We will continue responding to that. I understand we got a caller. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is Frank on Camnet. Your name, please.
Dixon,
Dixon, you're calling from Gateway.
yes.
What is your contribution?
My contribution is just a comment.
Please go ahead.
My contribution will come, I know our president is Kateka. I think one of the comments just mentioned why I started speaking out.
Why what?
My contribution is simple.
Could you repeat that? Yeah, could you repeat that?
The system and the overlook the system. We are people who are being the wrong stuff and to make us consistent to guide people who are doing the wrong thing. We need transparent leadership. I'm advocating for a new competitive type of leadership, and this will come from the character of Mr. Kateka. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. It's talking about transparency, and I think if I understood him properly, talking about leaders of high moral standing. Call us, and if you'd like to ask the president of the New Heritage Party, Ms. Chalakateka, and they should be able to respond to your questions. You were talking about something that breaks you.
Yes, the women. So there's nothing as painful as you work, you sell your tomatoes or whatever it is that you're selling, You send your child to school, you send your child, maybe that child is even accepted to some tertiary institution. They finish maybe college or university, and you are thinking, oh, finally, this guy or this girl is going to come and help me. And then this person comes home, and they're just, you're just looking at each other.
Right.
It's painful for the women to go through what they are going through. It's also painful for the women when their husbands don't work. Most of the men out there don't work. When we have a meeting, we always ask, who works in here? Most of the men don't work. And I think that we've lost the dignity of the Zambian people. That dignity is not there, the pride for the men. And because they are not doing what they are supposed to be doing, the frustration leads them to drinking and all sorts
Absolutely.
of things.
Let's see if we can take in another caller. This is Frank on Camnet. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, Frank. Good evening, Frank.
Good evening, sir. What is your name?
How are you, madam?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Your name, please?
This is Mr. Tinkara from Chingola.
Yes, Mr. Sinkala. What is your contribution?
I just want to appreciate the madam, because she has seen the suffering of the Zambian ladies. Zambian ladies are suffering too much. If I feel like the madam can talk about our system is bad. People are wallowing in the street, no employment, and people are suffering. We need a madam like Mrs. Katuka to help the economy of Zambia is bad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When I was coming from home, I was watching a few former African presidents, women, and the former president of Liberia, was actually saying, this is the season for women. This is a generation for women. You obviously you subscribe that. What is your conviction?
The conviction is that I think we have misunderstood this male-female thing, especially in the political arena, but in everything. When God created male and female, they were meant to be partners in endeavors. When you do something in partnership. And even though the man is the head of the house, but it doesn't preclude the woman arising and doing what she needs to do when there is a need. So you do find that even in the Bible, there was a Deborah who led Israel. She was a judge in Israel, and she led Israel for a season. This time, possibly because the women have seen, because I think we are seeing an unprecedented number of women now trying to get into politics, and they want to do something. I think that when women go out there, they want to serve, they want to bring solutions to this situation. Women have a heart which is different. They bring a different perspective to the table. We are not saying women must take over.
Right.
We are saying that we should work together, the men and the women, to build this nation.
Right. We did allude, when we started, that this is a rough, terrain, and women are at the receiving end more than men. Women are bullied. There is a bill in place which is awaiting for the president to assent to it. Your views on that?
On the bill?
Yeah.
The cyber bill, like all bills in Zambia, was brought in, based on good ideas. We're trying to do. The objectives of the bill, I need to read this to you. It's to ensure the provision of cybersecurity in the Republic, provide for the protection of persons against cybercrime, provide for child online protection, facilitate identification, declaration and protection of critical information, provide for the collection of and preservation of evidence of computer and network related crime, revise the admission, provide for registration. Okay, all of those are good. But as in most bills these days, the devil is in the detail. This bill gives carte blanche authority to intercept communication by those in authority. This includes wiretapping, other means of acquisition of conversations of any wire, electronic or oral communication through the use of any electronic, mechanical or other device. This clearly violates the rights of individuals and entities to their privacy. Where the bill should have been for good, it can be used as a target to as a weapon to target political opponents. It can be abused, and it's quite scary. I'm sure you've read it. It can suppress views of citizens and violate their right to freedom of speech. This does not lead to health.
Do you read something and why the sitting government and other civil societies, want, this, bill, to be made in law? At the same time, there are other, stakeholders that like the churches who have said, hold fire, don't assent to it.
Yeah, because of what's contained in there, it's a very intrusive bill. It's very, very intrusive. I think it's a mischievous bill. Maybe it's like Bill 10. That was a mischievous bill as far as I'm concerned. This bill is mischievous. Why is it being introduced at this time?
Right.
You know what I mean? The timing, it just polarizes the citizenry and those that are doing this. Why do you want to do it at this time?
Right.
You have to ask yourself the question.
I understand there's a caller. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Mr. Frank?
I'm fine, thank you. Your name, please?
My name is Joseph Somina.
Yes, sir. What is your contribution, sir?
My contribution is I want to contribute to Madam. She's talking about the house things and employment in now. I'm a youth, a Zambian youth, and I'm also educated. I've got a broken example. The way Madam is going to be there about how is she going to think that for employment? Because so far, if you can see from 1981, when MMC sold all the companies to foreigners, and she said foreigners are coming here to back their capital where they come from. They are not here to talk Zambia. And this MMC, EBPA, they have not talked they have not done any unfortunate, no shopping mall. Oh, what we see is that what I see myself, if you my father, I don't compare and terrible. It's so funny. Where I did graduated from the top of that, teaching you from which are going to work. You have growth Africa. But you want to ask them the right. And she's saying, I'm very happy and much I'm a you want to ask me, whenever I convert, you want to buy food because it's that. You go and put things there, then there is no, you want to support it. Whenever you don't support anything, what are you going to support? I thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to respond
I'm
to
not
that?
very sure that I heard.
Yeah.
I'm not very sure that I heard. I'm not finding this very clear.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just...
I think it partially agrees with you, about the need to export, into the neighboring, countries.
Yes.
Yeah.
For us, we don't like calling them youth. We call them young adults. I think youth is a sort of a demeaning thing. So how do we create? I think I alluded to it, and I said one of the low-hanging fruits is agriculture.
Yeah.
Agriculture has the potential to create a lot of employment, but we don't just leave it at agriculture. We need to take it further and do some value addition, because then now you create a market for the farmers, but then you also create employment for those that are working in the manufacturing sector, because now you'll be manufacturing whatever you've grown, and you start to go into manufacturing. That can be a beginning. He's very correct. They've closed all the companies, so there's nowhere for people to, and that's why I keep telling the young adults, when people come and they start promising you jobs, don't just agree with them. Where are they going to employ you? We must analyze our leaders, because they they want to lie just so that you can vote them in, and then nothing happens.
Right. Before we talk about some of the issues of concern as a run-up to the elections that should be addressed, let's talk about the qualifications. One key qualification is the school certificate, which has been heavily debated, and I think divided the nation. I was reading the sentiments from the former Secretary to the Cabinet, especially Sachika, who's saying he doesn't agree that this is going to enhance comprehension of issues of governance, legislature legislative issues in parliament, and enhancing debate. He went further to go through the answer and discovered that the debates during the Kaunda days, when a lot of people were not educated. I know they were, a number of ministers were educated, but some members of parliament were not educated. But the quality of debate was higher than today. Your thoughts on that?
The reason is very, very simple. When you take a standard 2 or a form 2 of 1964 and you take a grade 7 or a form 3 of 2001, very different. You cannot compare the two. Back in the day, the education system was so good that somebody in standard 2 or even standard 4 or 5 could debate. They would read. The culture was extremely different. You cannot compare the two. Our grade 12s cannot compare to a form 5, because the educational system was extremely different. People were mature and they could do these things. The form 5s, the people that we have now, firstly, look at the motive for going into parliament. They're not even going in there to serve. They're going in there, some of them, for their bellies. They don't read. And when they don't read, they just follow the wind. Do they understand? When you sign this cyber bill, for example, have you understood what you are signing? Do you understand the implications of this cyber bill? You just sign it. Do you see what I mean? It's very, very important that we have people in parliament that are going in there. They will read what they are debating. They'll understand the implications, and they'll make a right decision for the country, not for the party.
As a rider to that, then what is New Heritage Party, its policy on education? Obviously, the quality of education has gone down.
Yeah, we need to change the curriculum, because we're not producing what we should be producing. We are producing substandard sort of graduates or people that have left school, who, when you employ them, they can hardly write a report. What are we doing? See, if we don't look at that education, as a matter of fact, we should be looking at education. That's another potential for export, in that if we make Zambia an educational hub. It used to be. We had people coming from all over Africa to the University of Zambia. All over Africa, Nigerians, Namibians, South Africa. Do you know what I mean? Because our standard was extremely high. But now that we have dropped the standards, we are not going to earn any foreign exchange from that.
We got a few minutes, to deal with one or two, issues. Could you quickly point out, some of the issues of concern that should be addressed as a run-up to the elections? And I say this, because a few days ago, in President Kalaba, when he was in Mongo, he was saying he fears for a bloody election. That's frightening.
Yeah, I would like to say that we, as Heritage Party, we have written an open letter today to ECZ and to Zambia Police, asking them, agreeing with what Bahari Kalaba is saying, that we need to know ECZ can actually call upon Zambia Police to disarm the cadres, party cadres, because this can lead to an unmanageable position. We need to be very mindful as we go towards the election. But having said that, what concerns us about the coming election is we're not very sure that we have a level playing field. We have the party in power now. They have large meetings. They can meet anywhere. Nobody says anything, But you try and have one, you will not get the police. The police agreeing to you having these meetings, police permit. Access to national media has always been an issue. Fair application of the law. In terms of the right to assemble, we would like to see the security wings and the supportive wings to the elections to be professional and neutral.
Right. Let's see if we can quickly go to the messages, and then we'll come back and close the program. Madam, it's great to have a woman aspiring for the top job in the land. What are your chances of winning the elections or scooping a parliamentary seat? That is Joseph. Let's go to another one. Even Mr. Frank and Ms. Kateka, my question is to graduation teacher and nurses, high population of graduates, what are you going to do with them when you come into power? Port Fadaka from Kitwe. Good evening, Madam President. What will you do to the honor of the 48 houses when we vote you in power? Daniel from the Cobalt. Madam, I really appreciate the way you're articulating issues, especially on the sector of blocks making, which you haven't touched. How do you allow foreigners to make blocks in our country, knowing that these foreigners are busy externalizing money, yet there are lots of Zambians who are in block making?
But they can't compete.
Are we done?
Because unfair competition.
I think we're done with. Okay, there's another one. Evening moderator. What the presidential candidate is propagating is time and again contributed by previous political fellows, some of which were leaders of defunct, heritage. This is a different, party. It's been rebranded. Go ahead. Yeah, what? Could you respond to one or two of them?
Are they able to play them again, like one, and then I answer?
You just play one at a time, so that President Kateka can respond. Could you just repeat the messages?
Okay, so the one talking about the block making, this is what we are talking about. We have some nationals who even cook in Shima at the market, and you tell me that's an investor. You know, those we need to set aside certain business for Zambians.
Right.
Because we can't be competing at that level. So what he's talking about is making a lot of sense.
Right.
About the block making machine, but about the block making. But in actual fact, I know that CEEC has got some businesses that are reserved for Zambians now. So that is coming into place.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's basically it. Just two quick questions before we close. You know, well, I asked about your chances of winning, and in addition, you know, to that, would you go into an alliance?
It would be silly of us to say we wouldn't go into an alliance. But having said that, we would need to analyze and see whether this alliance would work. You know, alliances have not worked very well so far, and they seem to break down just before the election. So it's a risk you take, but we have to explore. I mean, you know, you have to explore, because this is not an easy thing to do by yourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
We did make reference to one of the qualifications, that's the school certificate. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine, Cesar Messina, before I came on air, that, you know, one issue, you know, that we keep on forgetting, which has been sidelined, is the health of a presidential candidate.
Oh, okay.
You know, physically and mentally. You know, in some countries, you're subject to rigorous, you know, health checks.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Look, the Constitution is very clear. You are actually required to look at those things. Is the president fit to be able to do this job? And we seem to ignore that aspect. But I think that a lot of things that we need to put back in place with regard to our nation, because we seem to have lost it. We should have medicals done and things like that before.
Right.
Maybe we should even do it before you file in. Because if you are not fit and proper, then
Absolutely.
you shouldn't even bother to pay the 75,000.
Right. In 30-40 seconds before I ask you my final question, your message, you know, to the electorate, to the Zambian people at large?
Our destinies are in our hands, and Zambia belongs to us. It's really up to us to do the right thing. Let's not follow the wind, but let's look at what will take us to where we need to go, and let's vote wisely. Let's not just do what we have done in the past, you know, and just say, oh no, now we are jumping into this, let's try this. No. Let us listen very carefully and analyze our leaders. Yeah.
My final question, you being a Christian person, a strong Christian, and you know, this medium, you know, being a Christian, sector, when we finish now and we walk outside and you bump into Jesus in his physical being, what kind of issues, conversation would you carry out, you know, with him?
Yeah, I would say, Lord, your people have been crying out to you for such a long time. Many are now beginning to lose heart and ask where you are in all this. So please show yourself strong. And Lord, thank you that it's not by might nor by power, but by the Spirit of God. And Psalm 125, 3 says, for the scepter of wickedness shall not rest on the land allotted to the righteous, lest the righteous stretch out their hands to do wrong. So Father God, we do ask you to establish your people at this time.
My final message to you and other political parties aspiring to lead this amazing country, do your very best.
Thank you.
And God
will do the rest. Amen.
Thank you very much for being my first guest on Frank on Camnet.
Thank you.
And God bless you.
Thank you.
Good. This has been the first edition of Frank on Camnet. My first guest has been the president of the New Heritage Party, Miss Shalakateka. I hope you did enjoy the program. I did. I would like to thank the crew in the studio and indeed the viewers. And happy birthday to the wonderful, beautiful wife of the proprietor, Pastor Chiluba, Mrs. Chiluba. Happy birthday to you. God bless you and many, many more happy returns. Good night to you all, Zambia, and good night to the rest of the world. Good night.
Oh, wow.